Coming up, how's Brexit going? A quick overview of the current situation. Plus, the old Something's Not Right channel has transformed into Truth to Power. So, Brexit. The EU is taking the UK to court for departing from the Northern Ireland Protocol by unilaterally extending the grace period before customs checks are put into place. From the EU standpoint, this leaves an open border between the EU and a third country, the UK, through Northern Ireland. The trouble is, the Tories, and Alexander Fridgeboy Johnson in particular...
So will you come on Good Morning Britain and deliver on your promise to talk to Piers and Susanna? We're ready to go. We're live on ITV. Do that now for us.
Had vowed that there would be no border down the Irish Sea between Britain and Northern Ireland. In fact, their alliance with the DUP that allowed the Brexit bill to pass was predicated on that promise. However, the withdrawal agreement with the EU, part of that Brexit deal, is based on there being no hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. The entire peace process, and the Good Friday Agreement particularly, relies on that lack of a hard border on the land. So, if there can be no hard border on the island of Ireland, and no hard border down the middle of the Irish Sea, what does that mean? Well, it means that the only alternative is no borders between the UK and the EU. So the only possible solution would be to rejoin the customs union. Now, the Tories recognise that this is emotionally unpalatable to all those swivel-eyed sovereignty worshippers out there. But I believe it's only a matter of time before Fridgeboy Johnson does a complete U-turn and moves us silently, and with lots of three-word slogans suggesting they're doing the complete opposite, back into the customs union with the EU. I would guess during 2024, possibly. Let's not forget, British exports to the EU plummeted by 41% during the month after Brexit, January 2021. And it's going to get an awful lot worse when the full import-export regulations are imposed later this year. Once they pull off rejoining the customs union without alienating the plastic patriots of the Brexit brigade, the next step would be to rejoin the single market, with some nicely misleading slogans covering up the fact that we'll be regaining our freedom of movement and allowing freedom of movement here from the EU. My best guess is that the best possible outcome could be that happening in 2026. Meanwhile, Brexit, far from cutting red tape, is virtually doubling it. Just one example. Manufacturers exporting to Europe still have to obtain the EU's CE safety mark for all the products sold to the EU. But now they are also mandated to achieve the UK Kite mark certification too for all UK exports, doubling their admin workload. And just look at fishing. The unelected David Frost, the chief Brexit negotiator who had no previous diplomatic experience whatsoever, made the fishing industry the priority for the Brexit deal. And it's turned out to be one of the worst hit sectors post-Brexit, with shellfish exports in particular collapsing by 83% after Brexit, and each boatload needing 71 pages of custom forms filled out where there was no requirement for them before. As they concentrated on the fishing industry, which let's not forget is roughly 0.1% of our economy in the UK, the Brexiteers completely ignored the whole financial services sector, which is a huge chunk of the economy, over 80%, and also a huge chunk of our tax revenues. Since Brexit, £1.3 trillion of assets have moved from the City of London to the EU, with Amsterdam overtaking London to be the largest share trading centre in Europe. But these are only a couple of headline examples. The day-to-day impact of Brexit is invisible to all but the most informed people. Daffodils rotting in Cornish fields because of the lack of EU workers to harvest them. Middle-class families losing their European au pairs, meaning they have to raise little Oberon and Cordelia all by themselves. Johnson also withdrew from the Erasmus scheme, which allowed UK students to study in the EU abroad with most of their expenses met. We could have remained in it, as it had nothing to do with Brexit. It was just a pathetic little petulant decision by Boris Johnson, a little spiteful "my bat, my ball, I'm going home" from the man who hides in the nearest fridge whenever he's asked a tough question. And his answer to this tough question was to say he'd replace Erasmus with a superior scheme. Well, that scheme has been unveiled, and it's called the Turing scheme. And surprise, surprise, it's a pathetic shadow of Erasmus, meaning your average undergraduate couldn't afford to be a part of it. Such a petty decision. Much like the decision to refuse the new EU Envoy in London ambassadorial status, which can only be explained by realising how it fires up the Brexiteers' base that we're sticking one to the straight banana people from the EU. Meanwhile, just like with corruption, the removal of fundamental human rights, like the right to protest, and the cutting of foreign aid, which will result in the death of thousands of children in the Yemen and elsewhere. But the opposition is not holding this kleptocracy of a morally bankrupt government to account. There's poor Ed Davey of the Lib Dems and Caroline Lucas from the Green Party doing their very best with their paltry small parliamentary presence, while Keir Starmer, the leader of the official opposition, just tries to work across the House, supporting the government in most areas, it seems, instead of straining every muscle to try to hold this corrupt, right-wing, extremist cabal to account.